It's so good to see everybody this morning. It's been a great morning so far. I don't normally make announcements, but I want to make this announcement because I'm so excited about it. On September 15th, we are going to have a Friends Day, and I love having Friends Days. Every congregation I've ever been a part of, every one that I've worked with, we've had a Friends Day. And I don't know that I've been a part of a Friends Day where, as a result, somebody wasn't baptized or came back to church that's been away for a long time. I think about in Hot Springs, Arkansas, the church I worked with there, we had a Friends Day, and Bill and Carolyn from church invited their neighbor, their friend Cindy. Cindy came to church on Friends Day, and then she came back the next week, and she came back the next week, and she started studying with people, and she was baptized into Christ, and as far as I know, she's still a member of that congregation there, and I see that kind of thing happening all the time, so I can't wait to see what will happen when we as a congregation reach out to our friends and invite them to come and to sing and to study and to hear what Jesus has done for them and to experience the love of this church family. And if you know the fact that we've got a fellowship hall service going on right across the hallway, and we've got this service, and we've got a first service, you might say, Wes, we don't have the room to do a Friends Day. You're kind of right. We don't have the room to do a Friends Day. We're actually going to do two fellowship hall services. On that Sunday, we'll do a fellowship hall service and first service, and again, the fellowship hall service. In this service, we'll do the best we can to make room until we build a facility that's big enough, and we all know we need a bigger facility, and Lord willing, that's coming. But here's the thing. We may not have the room to do a Friends Day, but I'd say we don't have the time not to do a Friends Day. We can't wait. We can't wait until we have more room. We can't wait until we have the facilities that we want or need in order to start reaching out and continue reaching out to our neighbors and our friends to tell them we have something that we want you to hear and we want you to experience. So I am incredibly excited. We're going to give you more information in the weeks coming, but here's what you could do this morning. You could text somebody. You don't have to text them right now, but at some point this morning, text your friend and say, hey, it was just announced that we're going to have a Friends Day at church on September 15th, and you came to my mind. And I want to invite you, and I want you to put it on your calendar to come to church with me on September 15th. So let's do that and share the love of Jesus with our neighbors, our classmates, our co-workers, and our friends. There was a study done, a book that was written called Life at Home in the 21st Century in 2012. And that's the next slide. And these researchers in the book, they studied middle-class families in the Los Angeles area, and they researched, sort of what they were spending money on. They noted that it was very popular, and I think we could relate to this, very popular to begin spending a lot of money on backyards, build up the backyard, nice backyard furniture and, fire pits and gazebos and trampolines and swimming pools. And the researchers asked the people how much time they spent in their backyards with their families. And they said, we spend a lot of time in our backyard. All of them seemed to say that they spent a lot of time enjoying their backyard. But the researchers actually observed how the families spent time over this given period. And it was interesting that in a given week, they noted that on average, the kids spent less than 40 minutes a week in the backyard. The adults actually spent less than 15 minutes in the backyard. And so it was interesting, and they noted that these people are investing in spending time together with their family. They kind of believe that they spend a lot of time with their family. They want to spend a lot of time together with their family. But the reality is that they don't seem to be spending a whole lot of time together with their family. And maybe we can relate to that, right? We're making investments to spend time with our spouse, our kids, our grandkids. We want to spend time with our spouse and our kids and our grandkids and our neighbor. We want to do that. We invest in doing that. We try to do that. But sometimes in our busy life and our busy schedule and our busy world, we just don't spend the time with even our immediate family the way we believe that we should, the way that we want to. We're just not spending as much time together as we want to spend together. And if that's true, it got me thinking, if that's true in our immediate family with our spouse and our kids and our grandkids and our nieces and nephews, if that's true in our immediate family, how much more true is it with our church family? How often do you call somebody from church and say, hey, let's grab lunch this week? How often do you send somebody a text just to encourage them from church? How often do you say, hey, let's grab a cup of coffee this week? How often do you say, hey, let's have your family come over and have a meal this week with my family? Or, hey, I want to come over and we're going to spend time together. How often are we spending time with, building relationships with, maintaining relationships with, and loving our brothers and sisters in Christ? Is it happening the way that it should happen? Here's something I want us to think about this morning, but all the time, that Sunday morning, this time together, should set the stage for the rest of our week. And we kind of know that on one hand, right? You know, like, hey, I like to come to church because we sing about Jesus, and we break the bread, and we drink the cup, and we say prayers, and we study the Bible. So it sets my mind on spiritual things, and I'm thinking about Jesus, so that all week I'm thinking about Jesus, and that's good, and that's the way it should be. But it's about this also, isn't it? This family, being together. This time of togetherness, this time of fellowship, this time of intimacy ought to set the stage for the whole week. I mean, this is an incredibly intimate time, isn't it? Or at least it should be. We actually share a meal together. Yeah, I know it's just a pinch and a thimbleful, but we're really taking real food and real drink and sharing a meal together so that the stage is set for us to go and do that throughout the week. So that this sets the stage for breaking bread together daily, for having cups of coffee together daily. Where we sing, it's kind of, when we sing songs, I mean, it's kind of vulnerable, isn't it? To allow somebody, I don't really want all y'all, I'll probably never lead a song from up here, and y'all ought to thank God that I'll never lead a song from up here, but I don't really want everybody to hear me singing, because it kind of makes you vulnerable, doesn't it? When somebody hears your heart, hears you singing songs, they really see you. And when you're hearing them, when you're hearing the person sitting behind you or the person sitting beside you, when you're hearing them sing, you are hearing their vulnerability. You are hearing their heart. They're opening themselves up to the Lord, but also to you. And all of that fellowship, all of that togetherness, all of that intimacy ought to set the stage for the whole week, so that as we go into the week with each other and for each other. We go into the week together saying, I want to love these people, and I want to be there for these people, and I want to share myself with these people, and I want these people to share themselves with me. I want to walk through life with them because that's what Jesus intended. Think about the Last Supper. That's been our text last week. That's our text today, and it'll be our text next week. But think about the Last Supper. When we think about the Last Supper, we probably think of Da Vinci's painting, don't we? That long table and Jesus in the middle and all the apostles on the ends. But that's not really what it looked like, right? They didn't sit in chairs. They didn't have long, tall tables like that where Jesus was at the time he was. They laid down. The table was low to the ground. They were lying on the floor, kind of propped up on one elbow, lying around in a circle. Jesus having washed their feet. They were eating together and drinking together and talking together, and I imagine laughing together and sharing their life with each other, because that's the point. That's what Jesus is establishing. That's what it's supposed to look like. That's what it's supposed to feel like. That's what it's supposed to be like. This is what Jesus is building, is this kind of a community that serves each other and loves each other and is together and is intimate and breaks bread and drinks the cup in remembrance of him together. That's what he's establishing. It's beautiful, isn't it? And you think, man, I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have seen that love and that harmony and that togetherness. But John, as he writes this gospel account, he's incredibly intentional about letting the reader know there's a snake in the garden. there's a betrayer at the table, and his name was Judas, right? And John wants us to see Jesus is building and establishing this community of love and support and service and selflessness and fellowship and intimacy, but there is a betrayer at the table. And John hasn't hidden the fact that Judas is going to be the betrayer. He's the one who's going to betray Jesus. Look at John chapter 6 and verse 70, way back in our text. Jesus answered them, "Did I not choose you, the 12? And yet one of you is a what? A devil." He spoke of Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, for he, one of the 12, was going to betray him. And then we read in John chapter 12 and verse 3, "Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, 'Why wasn't this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?' And he said this," John explains, "not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a" what? "Thief. And having charged the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Jesus said, 'Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me.'" And we often think about Judas betraying Jesus. But it wasn't just Jesus that he betrayed. It was his brothers too, wasn't it? I mean, these men had been together for 3 years. They had traveled together. You ever travel with somebody? You know, by the end of the trip, you either love them or you hate them, right? And that's in a car. I mean, these guys walked all over Palestine together for 3 years. They did everything together. They ate together. They were together all of the time. They knew each other, or so they thought. Judas wasn't about washing feet. He wasn't washing anybody's feet. He was robbing them blind. He wasn't laying down his life for his brothers. He was turning them over to the authorities. He wasn't looking out for their interests. He was looking out for his own interests. He helped himself to what was put into the bag. And now do you see that when you get to this scene at the Last Supper, as these men are lying there together, being together, singing together, talking together, eating together, drinking together, Jesus talking about, "I washed your feet, now you ought to wash one another's feet." John wants us to see that contrast. Now look at John 13, verse 27. After Judas had taken the morsel from Jesus, Satan entered into him. And Jesus said to him, "What you're going to do quickly." Now, no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, "Buy what we need for the feast," or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the morsel of bread, Judas immediately went out, and it was night. See, this is how John, the writer of this gospel account, this is how he works. He wants us to see contrast. He loves images of light and dark, day and night, dead and alive, love and hate. And in the midst of Jesus saying, this is the way it should be. Love each other, serve each other, love one another as I have loved you. In the midst of that, there is a betrayer. And John wants us to see that contrast so that you and I have a moment of truth. And we ask ourselves, am I the kind of person that follows the teachings of Jesus? Or am I the kind of person that follows in the footsteps of Judas? I know it's a stark contrast, but we've got to choose one or the other. Will I love or will I hate? Will I be devoted or will I betray? Look at verse 31. When he had gone out, when Judas had gone out, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and glorify him at once. Little children, yet a little while I'm with you. You will seek me, and just as I said to the Jews, so now I also say to you, where I am going, you cannot come." It's interesting I've been thinking a lot about this passage and the next few chapters. You know, in the other gospel accounts, Jesus gives a great commission, right? He says in Matthew, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Now go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations. In John's account, here's what we have. And it's very similar, isn't it? What he says about being glorified, that glorified is authority language, that the Father is going to glorify Jesus, give him all authority in heaven and on earth. But instead of saying, go and make disciples, here's what he says here. Verse 34, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this type of love, all people will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. Jesus is building a community of people who are built on this foundation. This is their set of marching orders. Love each other as I have loved you. I mean, all people kind of love each other or love each other to some degree, right? Jesus would say things like, you love those who love you. Good. But everybody does that, right? I mean, everybody does that. Everybody loves the people that love them. Everybody likes the people that like them. Everybody does good to people that do good to them. Everybody scratches the back of the people that scratch their back. Everybody does that. That's normal. That's ordinary. That's everyday. There could be nothing more normal or ordinary than loving like that. But Jesus invites us to love as he loved us. What does he mean by that? Does he mean by washing feet? Sure, that's what he's just got done doing, and that's part of it. But more so what he's about to demonstrate in going to the cross and laying down his life for them. He says, now you, if you're my disciples, you're going to be known by this, that you love each other that way. Not just that you love the people that love you, you love the people that are easy to get along with, you love the people that are like you love the people that look like you and sound like you and talk like you. Not just that you love them the way everybody does, the way that ordinary people do. You're going to love with an extraordinary, out of this world, supernatural type of love. You're going to love one another as I have loved you. These are your marching orders. Go out there and love one another as I have loved you, and by this all people will know that you're my disciples. Now, 1 John, in John's epistles, John's letters, it's great commentary on what Jesus says here. Look at 1 John chapter 3 and verse 11. For this is the message, John writes, this is the message that you have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. We should not be like Cain. You remember Cain, Adam and Eve's son, who killed his brother Abel, remember? So he says, we should not be like Cain, who was of the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own deeds were evil and his brother's righteous. Oh, I mean, come on, John. I either love like Jesus or I'm like Cain and I'm a murderer. I mean, that's very black and white, isn't it? That's a stark contrast. You say, come on, there's a lot of room in the middle there, isn't there? John says, no, you have to see it like this. It's not that you're going to love perfectly, but you have to make a choice. You have to have a moment of truth where you decide, will I love like Jesus or will I be like Cain? Will I be like Judas? Will I love or will I hate? Will I be devoted or will I betray? Will I stick with and hang in there or will I turn my back and walk away? For John, all throughout this letter, I mean, it's incredibly simple. He says, listen, if you want to know if you're a follower of Jesus, do you confess Jesus with your mouth? And have you stepped away from your old way of living and you love the brothers? For John, that's it. You confess Jesus with your mouth and you love the brothers. It's like Jesus saying the two greatest commandments are love the Lord your God with all your heart and your mind and your soul and your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. This is what it comes down to. Didn't we just sing that a minute ago? I promised I wouldn't sing, but love. The gospel in a word is love. If you choose to accept Jesus' invitation for forgiveness, restoration, and transformation, then you accept his invitation to choose the way of loving one another as he has loved us. Look at the next one, verse 13. Do not be surprised, brothers, that the world hates you. We know that we have passed out of death into life. We know that we've passed out of death into life. Wouldn't we like to know that? Do you know you've passed out of death into life? How? Because we love the brothers. This is how we know that we've been changed. This is how we know we've been transformed. This is how we know we're followers of Jesus. Because we love the brothers. Now, when we talk about love, we're not talking about like a warm, tingly feeling in our hearts. I mean, I love warm, tingly feelings in my heart, don't you? I mean, I love to feel that feeling. I've felt that feeling lots of times this morning as we've sung together. I love the feeling that we have in our hearts, but when John talks about love, he's not talking about a feeling, he's talking about action. Love isn't so much a feeling as it is action. Do you love the brothers? Do you love your church family? Whoever does not love abides in death. Everyone who hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. Again, I realize we like to say, well, there's all kinds of gray area, John. It's not love or hate. It's not life or death. And John says, no. You have to think of it that way. You have to begin to understand. You have to pick a side. You have to choose a path. Will you follow Jesus? And if you follow Jesus, you are choosing the way of life and love. If you don't choose the way of life and love, then you are choosing the way of death and hate. You have to choose. Will you love your brothers? Will you love your church family? Everyone who hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. Look at verse 16. By this we know love. This is what love looks like. That he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers, for the brothers. You know what love looks like? It looks like God becoming flesh and being lifted up and dying on a cross so that we can live. That's what love looks like. And you say, well, yeah, but I mean, how does that work in like practical life? Like, how do I live that out? That's the question. That's the question on which you and I need to meditate every single day of our lives. How does the cross teach me to live? Jesus says, if you want to follow me, this is what it looks like to follow me. Love one another as I have loved you. John says he laid down his life, so we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. Verse 17, but if anyone has the world's goods, right, has stuff, and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let's not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. So let's get a little more practical. How do we love as Jesus loved? How do we love as Jesus loved? Let's pull out three things from this text here. How do we love as Jesus loved? Number one, John says, because he laid down his life for us, we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. So that's how you love as Jesus loves. You lay down your life for others. Paul would say in Philippians 2, this is what it means. He means, consider others to be not less than you, not even your equals, but consider others to be more significant than yourselves. That's what it looks like to have the mind of Jesus, to consider others to be more significant than yourselves, so that you look out not only for your own interests, but also for the interests of others. Nothing could be more ordinary than looking out for your own interests, right? We all do that. If you're hungry, what do? You put food in your stomach, right? If you're cold, you put a blanket around your shoulders. If you're lonely, you find someone to be your friend. And if that's what it means to look out for your own interests, then becoming a follower of Jesus means you consider other people's interests, even above your own, so that when they're hungry, you put food in their stomach. When they're cold, you put a blanket around their shoulders. When they need a friend, you become a friend to them. Even to the point of laying down your life for them. And that's easy, isn't it? To say, oh, I love that guy so much, I'd take a bullet for him. I just love that guy. I'd swap my life for his life any day. I love that guy. I'd die for him. That's easy to say, but if you'd be willing to die for him, how come you haven't called him to have a cup of coffee lately? If you die for him, how come you don't spend time with him? If you die for him, how come you won't live in friendship and fellowship with him? It's easy for us to say we die for someone. Would we? And do we live for them? Are we on an ongoing basis laying down our lives for each other? Making time for each other? Jesus gave his life for us. It wasn't that he just like zapped down and died and then went straight back up. He spent 33 years walking with us, dwelling with us, spending time with us, showing us this is what it looks like to love, to live with, to serve, to give your life for each other. This is what the community is supposed to look like. It's supposed to be made up of everyone, young and old, men and women, slave and free, Jew and Gentile, everybody loving each other as I have loved you. So if that's number one, then he says also that if you have the world's goods and you close your heart against your brother, what's the opposite of closing your heart against someone? Opening your heart, right? Closing your heart, open. What does that mean? If we're supposed to lay down our lives and open up our hearts to each other, how do you open your heart? How do you close your heart? When you close your heart to someone in need, you're saying, I don't want to feel your pain. I don't want to feel how bad it feels to be in your shoes. I don't want to exercise empathy. But to open up your heart means exactly the opposite, doesn't it? To allow their pain to become your pain. To allow their burden to become your burden. As Paul says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. This is how we do it. We open up our heart to each other and we say, I'll share what's going on in my life, you share what's going on in your life, and we're going to help each other. Now, obviously you can't practically do that with everyone in the world. You can't even do that with every Christian in the world, but you could do that with a dozen people, couldn't you? That's what's so important about things like our life groups, where we get together and we open up our hearts to each other, and we allow their pain to come inside. And we allow them to see our pain, and we bear each other's burdens. It's vulnerable, isn't it? It's intimate, isn't it? And again, that's why our singing on Sunday mornings, we come together and we sing these songs and we allow other people in this room to hear our hearts. God, I love you. Not only are we opening up our heart to God, we're opening up our heart to each other, but that ought to set the stage for the entire week where we open up our heart to each other. And we allow each other's pain and each other's burdens to be carried by one another. Then finally, number 3, he says not to love in word or in talk, but in deed and in truth. Remember how we've been talking about the word truth in the Gospel of John? It means reality, as opposed to what? Illusion. It's really easy to give the illusion of being a loving person, isn't it? We could say all the loving things, oh, I love you, I'm praying for you, I'm very concerned about you, be warmed and well fed. God bless you. Go on your way. It's easy to say all kinds of loving things. It's easy to post loving things on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. It's easy to appear loving. What's more challenging is rolling up our sleeves and getting to know each other and spending time with each other in loving, in deed and in reality, in truth. It's hard, but it's worth it. I mean, imagine. It's worth it to be a part of a community where we all lay down our lives and open up our hearts and love in deed and in truth with each other. Wow, how awesome is that Jesus gave us that and that we get to be a part of that. And you say, yeah, Wes, but that's really naive. Not everybody loves like that. Not everybody lays down their life. Not everybody opens up their heart. Not everybody loves in deed and in truth, even in the church. But you and I can, right? You can't change anybody else. I can't change anybody else. You can't make me love the way that I'm supposed to love, but you can love the way you're supposed to love. We can choose, I choose the way of Jesus, to lay down my life, open up my heart, and love in deed and in truth. So here's our moment of truth question. What if everyone here loved the church exactly like you? There's some people in the church that I've known over the years, and I wish everybody in the church loved like them, right? You've known people like that, and you think, man, I wish everybody was as devoted to the church as he is. I wish everybody loved the church the way she does. I wish everyone would lay down their lives for the brotherhood the way this person does. But for the rest of us, what if everyone loved the church the way we love the church? What if everyone was devoted to the church the way you're devoted to the church, the way I am? For some of us, the church would be in a mess if everyone was as devoted as we are. We can't change everyone. In fact, you and I can't change anyone except ourselves. We can choose. I will love as Jesus loved me. I will be devoted to these people. I will open up my heart to them. I will confess my sins and my struggles to them. I will take their burdens on my shoulders, and we will walk together, not just on Sunday morning, but on Sunday night and on Monday and on Tuesday and on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday. I'm going to be a part of the community, the family that Jesus wants me to have. I'm going to love the way Jesus wants me to love. I'm going to accept the invitation that Jesus is inviting me into. And that starts when we're baptized, doesn't it? We accept that invitation. But then daily, we got to get up and we got to say, no matter what I did yesterday, no matter what I failed to do yesterday, today I will love as Jesus loved me. And maybe today, maybe somebody's ready to be baptized into Jesus, or maybe you have a burden and you need help carrying your burden. And maybe you're afraid that if you tell us what's going on in your life, that you won't be loved the way you need to be loved. Maybe you think they won't really love me, they won't really help me, they won't really walk with me. Try us. Try us. We can't know what's going on in your life unless you share it with us. You can't know what's going on in our life unless we share it with you. Go visit with our shepherds after service. Let them pray with you. Let them help you. Let them walk through this with you. Or right now, you have a tremendous opportunity to come forward as we stand and sing this song.